Today I'm going to show you everything you need to know about the Redstone Comparator, one of Minecraft's more confusing redstone components. This video is geared toward beginners, although I'm sure there's some information that even if you aren't a beginner you might not have known here, because we're going to be going over basically all the uses for a comparator and even some simple circuits and stuff like that using it that you might need in your Minecraft world. Also, if you like what you see in this video, then consider dropping a like and hitting that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 5,000 subscribers. It would be very much appreciated. Also, I do have an announcement that I'm pleased to be finally talking about now. If you don't care about it and you just want to know about the comparators, then just go to the timestamps down below. Skip this. But if you are interested, then stick around. So as many of you may know, I left the Craft server, or at least I ended the season for me. Like, I'd done everything I wanted to do. I stopped playing on that server. And I mentioned that it would be a little while before I joined a new server, and well, I'm happy to announce that I actually will be starting a new server called basically Minecraft. Fozzen will be joining it with me. Basically, we created it with like some other people that Fozzen knows. I think it's going to be a good time. They all seem like pretty good people, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And the best part is it starts this Sunday. And this is only relevant if you're watching this before Sunday, January 3rd, 2021. I'll be live streaming the start of the server starting at 11 a.m. EST on January 3rd. And I'll literally be live streaming the first part of the server. Like, I'll be live streaming from start to finish. Basically, when I join, when I have nothing, all the way to Mega Base Complete, blah, 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 months down the road. So, yeah, hope you guys are excited. I'm pretty excited, and maybe see you guys there. I figured the crafting recipe for the comparator would be a good place to start. Yeah, that's how you craft a comparator. It is expensive. It requires 3 redstone dusts to make those torches plus quartz, so it's one of the more expensive redstone items to make. I mean, most redstone items are expensive, but still, that's how you craft it. This is what it looks like when you place it down, and it actually gets placed down facing away from the player. Technically, the side here with this little torch that's turned off and like lowered, that is actually the front of the comparator. Normally you think this is the front of the comparator because that's what does most of like the comparing, measuring, stuff like that, but it's actually the back. This right here is the front, this is the back. Basically, whatever direction that arrow is pointing, that is the front of the comparator. A lot of the reason the comparator is often confusing to a lot of people is because it has a lot of different uses for one block. You can do a lot with this one block, or I guess redstone component. So the first one is I have a demonstration for. It's for comparing redstone signals. So basically we have the back of the comparator here, and it's getting a signal strength of 14. So this right here, it's the signal strength of 14. You can see that on the right hand side of the screen. And so it's not currently outputting anything because on, I guess that would be the left hand side because that's the front. On the left hand side, it's getting a signal strength of 15. So what it does when it's in compare mode is it takes the redstone signal going into the back of it and it compares that against the a side redstone signal. It could do that on the right side or the left side, in this case the left side. If the signal coming in from the left or right side is stronger than the signal coming from the back input, then it outputs no signal. However, if it is equal to or less than the back signal, like this, it will output a redstone signal out the back of it, as you can see there. If we move this closer, that's going to turn off. If we move that farther away, that's going to turn off. Or in turn, we could have done this as well. We could have moved that closer. As you can see, it's outputting the signal from that direction, like going that way. It looks like the back. I keep wanting to say the back. That's actually the front. It's a little bit confusing. So that's the first function of the comparator. Now let's go on to the second function here. And now we are in subtract mode as opposed to compare mode. So this actually, it's very simple the way this works. Right now we have a power of 1 coming out of the front, and if we look at this, this is a power of 14, this is a power of 13. Basically, when it's in subtract mode, meaning that this little torch here, it's raised up, so you can right click that, then it's in compare mode, right click it again, subtract mode. When it's in subtract mode, it takes the input from the back here, and it subtracts the input from the side, one of the sides. It doesn't matter which side. It subtracts this input from this input. So basically, this is 13, this is 14, so it's minusing 13 from 14, and it outputs 1. That's why it's called subtract mode. So if we were to make this a power 15 input by putting that right there, what it would do is it would take 13 from 15 and it would output a power level of 2. As you can see, it now is outputting a power level of 2. And so that's how subtract mode works. It's also extremely simple. So we just covered 2 uses for the comparator, and there's technically 4 main uses for like 4 principles. I can actually demonstrate this right here. The other use is, if we just do that, it actually doesn't really matter if this is subtract mode or not. What it can do is it can maintain a signal output. Basically, it'll take this signal here, it's a power level of 4, that's the signal strength, and it also outputs a power of 4. It doesn't like lose a signal or a power level of strength while it goes through the comparator. It doesn't matter if you change that. The 4th use is the most common use, and it's to measure items or certain other aspects of a block or container. In this case, we're using a container. So this chest here is a container, and it's got 3 stacks of items in it. This right here, it's just set to compare. This is set to compare. They're both outputting a signal. So the way that you can get a signal from measuring a container is you can either put the comparator directly in front of the container like this, or it can be one block in between. You can have one block like this separating it. It also has to be an opaque or solid block separating it. As you can see, glass is not working, but if we replace that, that's going to start measuring it again. And so comparators will output a different signal strength based on how full a container is. If we were to just put some redstone back there, we don't have to do that there, that would just be the same thing. Right now we're getting a signal strength of 2. If we were to like do that, we'll leave literally 1 item in there, we get a signal strength of 1. It's got like a whole formula calculation and like everything, which you can, if you want to see the actual specific math that it uses, you can find that on the wiki. We don't really need that for now, but if we were to fill this up 2/3 of the way, it's going to output a signal strength of 10, because, well, it can only go up to 15, so 2/3 of 15 would be 10. This is 2/3 full. If we were to take out that and leave it 1/3 full, it would be 5. And if we were to completely fill this container, we would get a signal strength of 15. Even with just 1 item missing from this container, it will change the signal down to 14. So that's the basic measurement system for chests, and chests are one of the simpler things to measure with comparators. And it gets trickier when there's like different numbers of slots in containers. So these are all the other containers that you can measure with a comparator. These are just the double chest variants. These are trapped chests. You can measure all of these with a comparator. However, it becomes trickier because not all of these have the same number of item slots. A lot of these are different. The calculation is a little bit different. It will become a little bit less precise. Like, that worked out very nicely. Like, it was 1/3 full. It's going to output 5 out of 15 signals. So if we were to like do something like this, we can put that in there. That's not going to smelt. If we put in a valid fuel like that, and we take a comparator signal off of this, it should be a signal strength of 10. Yeah. And so if that was completely full, it would be 15. If we remove that, that's going to be a signal strength of 5. So that one, it works similarly because it's in like, it can be broken down into thirds. These are all the same. This one will work pretty evenly as well because it's got 5 slots. So if we were to fill 1, we would get a signal strength of 3. As you can see, we have power 3, signal strength of 3. It's the same thing. So that one works relatively well. The brewing stand, I'm not actually sure. I've literally never tried like using a comparator on a brewing stand. I'm not actually sure how this would output. Let's just see. So if we put in 1 bottle, that's gonna, I don't know what that's gonna output. Outputs power level of 3. That's gonna go to 9. It looks like each one does 3, I guess, because it counts the blaze powder. It counts like the blaze powder slot and then the other slot for like the brewing ingredient. Alright, so it looks like if you completely fill up everything to the max, it will output a signal strength of 15. But if you don't even have like these full stacks, then it's not going to be 15 like that. It's going to go down to 14, and now we have mundane potion. That is very helpful potion. Minecarts with hoppers and minecarts with chests are a little bit different. They're a little bit special because you can measure them with a comparator as long as they're on a detector rail. They have to be on a detector rail to give an output like that's gonna give an output, but if it's not on a detector, or if it's on anything else, then it will not give an output. We have droppers and dispensers here, then we have the chests, and then trap chests. And the way that it works with double chests is it doesn't just measure like the one chest that it's right next to. It's gonna measure the entire thing. So if we like put stuff in all the different possible areas for like the chest separation, that's gonna measure the whole thing. That's like apparently a power level of 2. So it takes both into account when measuring. You don't need like 2 comparators or anything. The same goes for trap chests. These are trap chests. They're very similar looking, but they've got the red area around the handle. And again, with the minecart with chest, it works like with the hopper minecart. You just have to have it on a detector rail to make it work. And our last container is a shulker box. You can measure it the same way that you measure chests. It works the same way because it has the same number of inventory slots, so it's pretty much the same thing. It also works on all colors. Over here we have several other things that are not containers, but that give off a comparator signal that can be measured by comparators. So with the cake, it gives a different output for the number of cake slices eaten. So if we look at that right now, it's 12. It's gonna go down to 10. Goes down to 8, 6, 4, 2, and then it's gone. So that's how the cake works. Now we just kind of ate the cake, and the cauldron will give off a different signal based on how much water is in it. So right now, the water level of 1, it's going to give off a signal of 1. It looks like water level 2, it gives off a power level of 2, and water level 3, which is also the highest water level, gives off power level of 3 apparently. The composter will give off different levels depending on how many layers of compost there are. Like, let's just try putting this in. Oh, if we compost that, that's going to start going up. Yeah, so, and then when it gets to the max, it looks like it's a power level of 8. It looks like it goes up to power level of 8. So that's how the composter works. It can also measure like technical stuff with a command block. I'm not going to get into that because it's actually really technical, and I haven't worked with command blocks in a really long time. I used to be pretty good at command blocks before like the update. I think it was like the Great Flattening or something that changed commands, and then I haven't really relearned some of that stuff, so I don't know too much about the command blocks. All I know is that it can measure it. And portal frames, I believe it just gives off like a signal based on whether or not there's an Eye of Ender in it. I'm assuming is that going to be 15. It just gives off either signal strength of 15 or no signal. So that's not terribly helpful either, because like you can't take the eye out, so it's like a one-time thing. The item frame though is actually extremely useful. So if we were to get like something that's easy to see, let's put a sword in here. If you were to take this comparator out the back, it has to be on the back of the block that the item frame is on. So right now it's giving off a signal strength of 1. If you rotate the item, it gives off a power strength of 2. If you rotate it again, it gives off 3, and so on until, let's see, let's get it, that's the rotation before normal. It goes up to power level of 8 and then back to 1. So it changes the power level based on the item frame rotation, and that's actually a really easy way to create hidden activation methods for like secret doors or traps or something, because you can just have a player rotate an item frame item until it gets to a certain signal. Like, let's say let's lay down 8 things of redstone dust here with a repeater at the end, and then we'll get a dispenser and we'll get a fire charge. This is just kind of a demonstration of what I mean. So alright, so it's reset and it's giving off a signal strength of 1. If we rotate that, that's going to give off like 2, I think. It's going to go up to like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And finally, if we rotate it one more time, that'll go to 8 and it triggers that. So that could be an easy way for an activation method. Like, you have to turn the thing in the item frame to a specific orientation. Jukeboxes give off different signals for a comparator depending on what music disc they're playing. So right now I have cat. I'm not sure what signal this gives off. If we put that in, it looks like it gives off a signal of 2. But if we were to get a completely different disc, like we'll get Ward, that's actually one of my favorite, it's going to give off a signal strength of 10. So each disc just has its own assigned signal strength. There's like, you can find a table like with all the different signal strengths and stuff on the wiki, on the Minecraft wiki. So yeah, it just kind of depends on the disc. The lectern here, it's pretty straightforward, so it gives off a different signal strength depending on what page you want. We're on page 1 out of 15 right now. It's giving off power level of 1. We'll go to 10, we're going to get a power level of 10, and if we go all the way to 15, it's going to give off a power level of 15. So it just depends on what page you're turned to. And that's actually another way to create like hidden activation methods, or like just to trap unsuspecting players, because it could be a completely innocent looking lectern with a book in it. You turn to a certain page and this thing gives off like a certain signal. It could activate a trap. The beehive and the bee nest, they're really straightforward. They just give off a different signal strength depending on how much honey is in them. And the respawn anchors give off a different signal based on how much glowstone you put in them. So if we put in 1, we are going to get a signal strength of 3. If we put in another, it looks like 7, 11, and 15. So it gives off just a different signal strength depending on how full it is. Now it's also, if I right click that, that would explode. So there we go. Now it can't blow up. Just want to make sure. So those are all the different blocks and containers that you can interact with using a comparator. And so now we're going to take a look at 4 simple circuits that you might be likely to build or need. Or it's like just some of them are circuits, some of them are contraptions, just like useful things, primarily centered around the comparator. So the very first one is incredibly simple. It's just a pulse extender. So normally when you have like a button, you connect it to redstone, it's on for about a second. But if you do a loop using comparators, basically you've got comparators facing all the same way, and then comparators nearby just like connected to it with a redstone facing the opposite direction. It creates a loop. So if we do that, you'll see they all light up, and if we look at this, the signal strength gradually goes down. Let's do it again. It's hard to see, I didn't show it very well. That signal strength slowly ticks down until it eventually runs out. And so that's a way that you can like make a door open for longer, a certain amount of time. For example, like a piston door. It's useful for a lot of things like that. If you want just like a button activated thing, if you want a semi-constant signal, like it's kind of in between having a button and a lever, either just like a 1 pulse signal or a constant signal, because it just makes 1 pulse into slightly longer signals. Our next thing is also quite simple. It's just a comparator set to subtract mode with some redstone around it. If you put a lever at the front of it and toggle it on, it creates a super fast clock circuit. It's connected to a dispenser with fire charges, so it just spams fire charges. You probably recognize our third contraption here. It's literally just the super basic item sorting system here. It's basically what's happening here is we have a redstone torch, which is powering this block, which is locking this hopper, and that means the items up here, they can't really go anywhere. But if you were to increase the signal given off by this enough so that it made it down here and depowered that torch, it would unlock this hopper, meaning items could flow through here. And so let's say we want to sort for andesite, polished andesite. That's going to give off a high enough signal strength that it will depower that. This gets unlocked and it starts counting this down until it gets to 41. You can also add like more of the filler items so that like doesn't keep 41 in it. It can keep less. You can do that as well. And you'll see that it just keeps it like this. But if you put another one in, that's going to go down into there. Our final contraption here using the comparators, it's a super basic storage silo design. I know there's like more compact ones which you could like look up a tutorial on. I'm not like doing that here, but you can find tutorials on more efficient item silos than this. Basically what this does is when a chest becomes this full or fuller, it will give off a signal which will power this redstone lamp. So like you see the lamp on, you're like, oh, this chest must be full. If we take anything out of that, it's going to turn off. And the way this works is over here we have another chest that's mostly full of items, same as this. and it has a comparator measuring an output. And this comparator, it's currently in compare mode. So what it's doing is it's comparing the signal strength from the back of it here to the side signal strength. This is giving off the same as that. So right now, they're both giving off an equal signal strength, which means that it's allowing an output through the front here to go and power this. If we make this less of a signal strength than that, then it's just getting turned off. And that was the first principle that we actually talked about with the comparator, so that's the practical use for that. Like, if we put more in there, it's going to equalize it, and it will turn on the lamp. So that's another super basic use for the comparator in like actual Minecraft. And it's redstone, so there's always going to be like a basically an almost infinite number of uses for the comparator. These are just a few very common ones that I selected. Be sure to comment down below if there's something that like you thought of or that I may have missed like in the basic things, but I think I got a decent selection using the comparator. Like another basic thing I decided not to add because I already have another video on it, is you can use it to make like exact minecart item loaders for minecart systems, like minecart with hoppers. So you can do stuff like that using the comparator. There's just a vast number of uses for it, so this is just a small selection. With all that being said, you should have a pretty decent understanding of the comparator now, just like a basic way of using it. You don't have to like use it in super complicated things. Like as I showed down there, there's lots of simple things that you can use it for. And this was a redstone component that I was confused on for a very long time. And honestly, once I actually took the time to just like research it and figure out how to actually use it, and I like built a lot of farms and machines using it, I finally came to understand how you use it. But the purpose of this video is to help people understand the comparator better, because it's one of the more confusing redstone components. Hope you guys found this video useful, and if you did, then consider dropping a like and hitting that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 5,000 subscribers. That'd be very much appreciated. And also be sure to comment down below what you would like me to do next for I guess like a guide on a redstone component, because I'm doing kind of like a mini series where I talk in depth, like sort of like all the basics, but also like just other knowledge that you need to know about each redstone component. We started with the comparator, so be sure to let me know what you think I should do next for the next component. Anyways, that's gonna be all for this video. Thanks for watching, guys. I've been Sbeev, and I'll see you guys in the next video or live stream. Bye.